Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search With Candour. I am your host, Jack Chambers-Ward, and joining me this week I have two very special guests. They are the hosts of the SEO Mindset podcast, Sarah McDowell and Tazmin Suleman. You may recognise them as they have both been guests on the podcast previously, and we've done a bunch of crossover episodes live and in person in Brighton before Brighton SEO. And that's exactly why I've got Sarah and Tazmin on the show this week. We're going to talk about the topic of career planning and how to do that without overwhelming yourself. And that is going to be the topic for our live podcast coming up on the 2nd of October, the day before Brighton SEO. I will get into all the details in a moment with Sarah and Tazmin, don't worry. But if you do want to get your tickets, links in the video description, link in the show notes, go to our Eventbrite page. Tickets are free. They include pizza, they include drinks and snacks, and a live podcast, Q&A, all the amazing stuff you can expect if you've attended the previous three events. This is our 4th time running it and our 2nd year running because we do it twice a year. Come and join us. Come and have a fantastic time. And if you want to learn a little bit more about it, listen to the rest of the episode where Tazmin, Sarah and I break it down and basically kind of tease the topic a little bit, but we're going to get into proper in-depth detail when we actually do the live podcast coming up in October. In the meantime, let's have a word from our sponsors. A huge thank you to SE Ranking for sponsoring this week's episode of Search With Candour. SE Ranking is the company behind the powerful and intuitive SEO platform trusted by millions of agencies, businesses, and SEO professionals since 2013. With a robust toolkit, SE Ranking empowers SEO professionals around the world to excel at executing their strategies. Key features include the rank tracker, which provides accurate and up-to-date keyword rankings, as well as the competitive and keyword research tools that offer deep insights into market trends and competitor strategies. The platform's AI-powered SEO insights leverage advanced machine learning to deliver actionable recommendations, streamlining the process and letting you outrank your competition. The backlink checker and monitoring tool enables you to analyze backlink profiles and monitor their status, ensuring you've got a very healthy link building strategy. Earlier this year, SE Ranking released a massive data quality update to the backlink checker tool, so it's definitely worth trying now in 2024. And coming very soon, SE Ranking will introduce the AI results tracking solution that will help you see how you stack up against your competitors in Google's AI enhanced search features. The tool supports you in identifying your rivals in the snippets, analysing their content, and detecting new opportunities for strategic decisions. Click the link in the video description down below or in the show notes if you're listening to this episode. And a huge thank you to SE Ranking for sponsoring us here at Search With Candour.
Hello, both.
Hello, Sarah.
How are we doing? So we are recording during our lunch break, aren't we? And in Worcester, the sun is shining for me. I don't know about you guys.
In Milton Keynes, it is shiny. It was pouring a minute ago, and I thought, how am I going to go out for my lunchtime walk? I'm not going to wear a raincoat. It's not in August.
It's probably shining in Norwich, but I'm in a cupboard that is the podcast studio here in Candour, so there are no windows, there is no ventilation in this room, so I think it looks quite nice if I just peer out into the office over there. It's been like kind of grey but kind of humid over the last couple of days after it being like swelteringly hot for a few days, so kind of a mixture, you know.
It does make me laugh because whenever I'm out walking Benny the dog, famous Benny the dog, and I'm having conversations with people that I meet, because we've seemed to have quite a bit of rain over the last couple of days, people are like, that's it, summer is over, no more.
The most British conversation you can have. Yeah, exactly.
But we are not here to discuss the weather, are we?
No.
Something not an especially
far more
interesting
exciting.
podcast topic.
We have
far more exciting.
Far more exciting, and we have a very exciting announcement, don't we? So
the clue is that I'm here, right? I'm the big clue.
What are you doing here, Jack? Again, remind
I know,
me.
Right? fact that all three of us are on screen together, whether you're listening to this on the SEO Mindset podcast feed or watching this or listening to this on the Search with Candour feed, we're back. We're teaming up again. And this isn't just me being a guest on the SEO Mindset podcast. This is a full crossover on both feeds to announce our live podcast collaboration once again. Round 4, I believe it is now, of our collabs. Even though technically I wasn't at the last one. You guys have done 4. This will be my 3rd.
Yeah, apparently a wedding is more important, isn't it, Jack?
My wife's family is they dragged me whether I liked it or not, all the way up north, the opposite end of the country, away from Brighton, and I missed the last one. But we'll be back now, coming up in October when Brighton SEO returns. We're going to be on the Wednesday, the 2nd of October, the night before, like we always do, starting at 7 o'clock. We're back, and we're going to be doing more live podcast in front of a studio audience. You will have Q&As and all that good stuff. You guys can get involved. You've probably potentially already heard the previous episodes we've done. They've been on our podcast feeds as well. So it's going to be more of that good stuff. But we have a new topic. We're going to have new sponsors, and it's going to be very exciting.
Tazmin, do you want to tell our listeners what the topic is going to be?
I will, but first I want to say how super excited I am because it is becoming a Brighton tradition. We are the new Brighton tradition. And if you are in Brighton and have never been to one of these live podcasts, then they are super, super fun. This time we are going to be talking about career planning, but career planning in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming, is doable, and just feels authentic.
I really can't wait. And yeah, it still blows my mind that this whole thing, this whole collaboration that we've got going on now started off as an idea. It started off as a conversation of, wouldn't it be nice if we did this thing? And we just seem to all roll with it. We do it, and it's one of my favorite times of the year when we do our live podcast because it gives us such a unique opportunity, because usually with a podcast it is one way, isn't it? It's people listening to us and we're going through their headphones, going through their speakers, but it's usually one way. Whereas with a live podcast, because we are inviting you to come and watch, to come and be part of the live recording, you get to be part of that conversation. And each time, you've already mentioned the Q&A, Jack, but I feel like it's much more. It's less of audience members asking us questions, but
definitely, yeah,
everyone shares their own stories, experiences, and people get really like vulnerable, don't they? People really open up, talk to us about how they're feeling, or how a certain issue, topic, or whatever we're discussing on their night, how it affects them. And it's such a lovely way to start the conference. And I feel as well that the live podcast is an alternative to lots of other events as well, because there's lots of other things that you can go to that involves like drinking, socializing, networking, more of the party vibe. Whereas with the live podcast, I think it's more, I don't know, like it's a bit more tranquil, it's more calming, it's a relaxed space. Yes, you're still coming and you're meeting other people, but the atmosphere is a lot more calm, isn't it? And a lot more chilled. And yeah, and we always receive really good feedback, don't we?
Yeah, I think a lot of people say like we've had that like very welcoming environment, I think was the words that people used a lot of the time, and how rare that can be, especially at like big conferences and stuff. I think it was like a really nice thing where we've crafted this little open, welcoming section of the like long weekend essentially that is Brighton SEO.
I think somebody said it was one of the most human SEO events that they had ever been to.
Human.
Yeah, that was the word they used, the most human. And I think it is very personal, very personable. you can come as yourself, be yourself, and that, I think, is the difference. You don't have to put on a front. And as we've been doing more and more of them and building on that that vibe that we want to have carried through, and people are beginning to recognize what sort of event it is, and we're getting more and more people through and joining us, it's becoming a really beautiful thing.
Definitely. And we need to mention the venue, because I remember the first time I walked into the space. So the venue that we have is called Projects the Lanes, which is like a 10-minute walk away from where Brighton SEO is. So it's really central, really easy to get to. But I remember walking in the room, and I think a gasp came out. I was like, it's so beautiful because it's dome shaped, isn't it? High ceilings, circular. And I mean, me explaining the venue won't do it justice. You're just going to have to come and check it out yourself, or but the venue is beautiful. And yeah, it's such a, I just love being in that space as well. And also a shout out to the people who help us make this happen. So obviously there are costs involved, but we always want to try and keep this accessible, and we want to be able to offer tickets to as many people as possible. So at the moment it is free. You don't have to pay to attend, and you get free food, free drinks, free snacks. There's a goodie bag as well, and I have to say the goodie bag was impressive last time. But these things do cost, so it's so great to have the support of others in the industry. So the sponsors that have helped us from the start, from the get-go, so the likes of Systrix, Stat, Majestic, and we can't wait to get support from others in the industry, because whenever we have conversations with other people, we talk to them about the event, you can really tell that they want to be part of it, and they want to support, and they want to get involved, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of that, as I said earlier, the kind of room for this kind of event in the industry. I think that was a lot of the feedback we got was, as you said, Tazmin, it feels human, it feels unique, it feels different to a lot of the other networking and kind of marketing events that happen. Plus it's a live podcast in there as well. Plus there's the participation side of it that I think really, as you said, Sarah, like differentiates the live podcast element. It's not a Q&A, it's actually people sharing their stories. There was some brilliant feedback we got that really resonated with me, that somebody said, I didn't have to say anything, but I still felt heard, which I thought was a really fascinating way to think about, because obviously us being up on stage, I wasn't really kind of like in that mindset. I am very heard. I've literally got a microphone in my hand. I'm feeling very like an active participant in this. And then hearing that even people who didn't share their stories could relate to other people's stories, whether that was us on stage, whether it was the rest of the people in the audience, there was enough common ground there that everyone was kind of sharing their stories and understanding, oh yeah, I didn't realize other people felt like this way, or have been through similar things to me as well. I think there was a really nice kind of open discussion where even if you didn't ask a question or share a story, you still felt like you were part of something and part of the community and the conversation, which I think is really, really nice.
It's really important and really valuable, because it took me back a little bit, because during the last live where we had Willow from Stat and we were talking about authenticity, obviously before the night we sort of have a discussion, we have a plan, we know kind of what we want to cover and stuff, but it still surprises me what ends up coming out of my mouth sometimes, because I feel so safe and supported and secure. I feel like I can open up. And last time, I didn't even realize that this was part of my authenticity or my authentic story, but of course it is. But I shared my coming out story, and I had one of those out of body experiences of when I was speaking it. I was like, am I actually doing this? Is this actually happening? And it was lovely and it was wonderful. But the reason I'm saying this is afterwards, a couple of people from the LGBTQ plus community came to me and said, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for speaking up and sharing your story. Because like you said, Jack, they felt heard. They felt that a story, something that personal around being authentic, they could 100% relate with. And they started sharing their stories and they started being really open and vulnerable with me. And I was like, crikey, that is really something, isn't it?
I think also because there are things that we hear about people saying I'm suffering from burnout or imposter syndrome or anxiety or lacking of confidence, and these are challenges that the industry has. We know it, people talk about it, it's out there. What hasn't been out there is, okay, so what are we going to do about it? And all three of us are really passionate about moving that forward, taking it from just being a challenge to something that has a solution. And we all find a way of doing it in our own way. Sarah and you and I do it through the podcast, the three of us through the live podcast. So when people say they feel heard, it's not surprising because it's the sort of topics that we are covering. And what makes me really gladdened, what gladdens my heart, is that when you talked about the sponsors, it's not just about getting sponsorship to cover costs. Obviously, those costs have to be covered. But what makes me happy is that there are people in the industry who also want to push that conversation forward and find solutions. So we're doing our bit to help, they're doing their bit to help us so we can help. And it's a really wonderful ecosystem that's being created. And I truly believe that it is the beginning of something that's going to be so beneficial to the industry, not just this live podcast, not just our podcast, but the more solution focusedness of it that's going to help the industry at large.
I'm excited and here for the journey and to see what happens. And little brag, but this just goes to show how needed this event is and how much people were wanting to come. Is we sold out twice last time, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So we reached our first goal. We spoke to the venue and we were like, what's the chances of increasing the old capacity? They were like, okay, go and do that. We increased the numbers and then we sold out again. So I think not just to brag, but I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is to show that what we're doing is needed. And it's not that it's so much of a lifeline. Maybe it is a lifeline for some people, but I think people come to these events and they get so much from it. And it's just so wonder, and I feel like I'm getting a bit emotional and I could cry a little bit right now, but it's so great that we are creating this space, we're creating this opportunity, and we're doing something. We're showing up for our community, aren't we? We're showing up for the industry. Other people are showing up for the industry, and I'm just so appreciative of it all.
Can I share a story? So there was this lady that was talking to me, and she signed up. She came along, but she had come to Brighton SEO with her husband. He wasn't into SEO, but they were treating it as a mini break. She dragged him along to this live podcast, and the next day she said to me, "It's like he's a different man. He's talking about feelings."
There we go. We're
breaking
down.
Talked about feelings.
We'll break down toxic masculinity one man at a time as well. That was the last topic I discussed on the last time I was on SEO Mindset. So.
Oh dear.
Right, so shall we take a short break, and when we come back for part 2, we can discuss more about the topic, why you should come, and other wonderful stuff relating to this subject, really.
Our next sponsor is Core Updates. That is the latest newsletter from the one and only Mark Williams-Cook. You may know Mark from his unsolicited SEO tips and his appearances on this very show. He started this podcast, in fact, and is going to be my co-host every single month on our monthly news recap episodes. But if you just want a bit more Mark, you want all of his unsolicited SEO tips, get them actually solicited directly to your inbox every single week. You get the latest episode of this podcast. You get all of the latest SEO news and articles that Mark has selected and thinks are the things you should be paying attention to. All of that delivered to your inbox every single Monday. So if you want to get, like I said, Mark's usual recaps and stuff, it is one of the best places to go for the latest SEO news and pretty much what you can expect from the best in the industry when it comes to the articles and news that is going on, any updates from Google and all that kind of stuff. Go to coreupdates.com and sign up today to get SEO news, brand new episodes of this very podcast, and Mark's SEO tips delivered straight to your inbox. Coreupdates.com is the place to go. We're back from the break, and we're going to talk about the details about the event itself, going to kind of discuss the topic a little bit. Going to get into the topic a little bit, but not too much, because you're going to have to actually come to the live podcast to get all the details, get all the tips, get all the advice, and share your stories with us. But the topic is actually talking about career planning without overwhelming yourself, and specifically strategic career planning. So you're not just kind of winging it a little bit. You're going to try and be a little bit more strategic, which is definitely something I struggle with, because I am not a planner in general. My ADHD brain is very short term, very like, what's happening now? I need to do 5 things at once. I don't think I've ever had like a long term, like when I was a kid thinking, oh, I want to be this when I grow up or anything like that. It was very kind of all over the place. And before kind of fairly recent, probably my 30s, to be honest. I'm now 33 at the time of recording. We'll be 34 by the time the live podcast comes around. And I was kind of thinking like, I should probably work out what I actually like about my job and what I don't like and what the options are available and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Sarah, is it a similar kind of story for you? I know you've recently had a fairly significant career change with you going freelance and stuff, right?
Yeah. I've just realised me and you, Jack, we're practically the same age, because I am also 33. I'm a little bit younger than you, to
Right,
brag about that, because I don't turn 34 until January. So I've got a bit more of the youth. No, I'm joking. I mean, while we were talking about career planning, something funny did come into my mind. And at school, you know how you do your pictures and you do like, this is what I want to be when I'm older. Young Sarah wanted to be a butterfly lady.
What does that
Still
even
to
mean?
this day, I have no idea what a butterfly lady is.
Are you
Right.
like catching the butterflies and then studying them? So you've got the little preserved butterflies and the
Well,
little cases and stuff, whatever that's called.
hopefully not, because that's not very fitting with my vegan ways, is it?
Not really. Or and maybe you could work in like a butterfly house in a zoo or something, because you know you have the
Maybe.
insect houses where you go in and it's all really humid and stuff, and it's like this big greenhouse. You could go in like a little butterfly house in a zoo.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I thought that's just something that always sticks in my mind, is like, you, Sarah, you wanted to be a butterfly lady. But no,
maybe it's a journey. Like you're going from young caterpillar Sarah to
yeah.
chrysalis Sarah to adult butterfly Sarah.
You're getting very deep now, Jack. Very, very deep. But for me, I've never really been a planner, just like you. I'm more, I go with the flow, and something that I've realized is I'm a yes person. So throughout my career so far, I just happen to say yes to things. If I enjoy them, I do more of it. If I don't enjoy it, I stop doing it. So I've never really known what I want to do. I've never sat down and had a plan, or I've never really thought, okay, in 5 years' time, I want to do this. In 10 years' time, I want to do this. I sort of go a bit on a whim, a little bit. But I do want to get a bit more strategic. And one of the reasons why I don't plan is because of the overwhelm, which is what this is all about, isn't it? Because it just feels too big and scary for me to have this plan, have my career sorted, have my career settled, like, because I don't really know what that means for me. Yes, recently I have had a career shift, and I've gone from being employed to being freelance. And one of the reasons I did that was because I wanted to do more of what I loved. And for me to do that, I had to be a freelance SEO consultant and a podcast producer. I had to take that step and try it out for myself. So now that I am freelance and now that I've got my own thing, I think having a plan is even more important as well, because I need something to work towards. I need to know what is success for me. I need to make sure that I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. But the only way that I know how to do that is if I've got a plan, I've got a bit of a structure, I know what I'm trying to aim towards. So I want to come away from doing stuff off the cuff and being a bit more strategic. Like, I still want to have a bit of flexibility and try different things, because I think that mindset has played its role and it's where I am today, but I still want to be a bit more strategic. Tasmin, what are your thoughts on this?
So I didn't grow up around people that planned their careers. In fact, I never really, we didn't think about it as a career. You had a job, you did your job, you did your thing, you came back home again. And it wasn't until I would say my 40s that I was introduced to the concept of goal setting. I didn't know that you could have a goal and work towards it. It was brand new to me. But at the time, I was then in an organization that had people like that. So it felt more natural to have a plan than not have a plan. I would say, having been both types of people, of those people, you achieve more if there is a plan. You are more motivated if you have a vision of what you are going towards. You get more done. And I am now such a planner to the point where every so often I will look at what do I want to do. So currently I'm on a like a 4 week sprint of this is what I want to get done in the next 4 weeks. What does that mean in terms of actions? How often do I have to take those actions? When am I going to do them? So I have, a spreadsheet with all of the actions I'm going to take this week, next week, next week, next week. Then I'll have a week off to assess, did I get where I want to do, readjust the action. So that's how I am operating at the minute, because it's like you said, when you're freelance and when you're doing multiple things, if you're not careful, time runs away and the money doesn't come in, or the leads don't come in, or the podcast doesn't get done, which isn't an option anymore. But I think if if you were to come to me and say and hired me as an accountability coach, or if you'd gone to a PT and said, I want to get fit, and they or me turned around and said, yeah, okay, great, yeah, so what do you want to achieve? Okay, yes, goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. Oh, we'll just wing it. You would feel dissatisfied with that service because it wouldn't get you where you wanted to be. So if you would be dissatisfied with that service, somebody else that you're paying someone else for, then why are you being a poor service to yourself?
Very good question, Tasmin. Very good question. Yeah. And I think it's really hard, isn't it? Because we're all very good at giving others great advice, great support, great guidance. But when it comes to actually doing it ourselves, I know I'm not very good.
You and me both, Sarah. Absolutely.
I think this is where it's important to have someone else help you, because they will ask you those questions that you won't ask yourself and keep you accountable. But how do I feel about career planning without overwhelming? Just be gentle, take it bit by bit, be kind to yourself. but even if it's one step in the right direction, take it.
Yeah, definitely. And I really can't wait for this conversation to happen more in depth in a few weeks' time, because, yeah, I can't wait to get into more of this conversation with you both. We're going to give some really good practical tips and advice. We'll also have the section where our audience will join in. So they'll either ask a question themselves or they will share their own experiences. But I think personally and selfishly, I'm going to get so much out of it because, yeah, it's something that I definitely need to do, but I just always put it off because overwhelm is scary, isn't it? And I mean, how do you deal with overwhelm, Jack?
Not well. That's probably the answer to that. I panic and overwork and tend to do again, the very ADHD thing of doing an entire day's worth of work in an hour and just absolutely cramming. I did this all through my academic career, all through college and university. And until fairly recently, I'm now, going through processes, which I will discuss at the live podcast, of being more aware of this kind of stuff and being more aware of my timings and deadlines and all that kind of stuff, and making sure I'm not just, oh God, everything is last minute, everything is panic stations, everything, and just feeling constantly exhausted and overwhelmed. And then realizing when it gets to Friday afternoon, I'm like, oh, I've just been cramming the entire week, which means I've just been on, 110% the entire week, and now I'm exhausted. Now I've got a few techniques, and certainly I'm on new medication, which certainly helps as well with my ADHD. That's going to help kind of plan a bit more and bring a bit more structure to both my work life and my personal life as well. Because I found a lot for me, especially my previous role, and again, I'll go into more details about my weird career path on the live podcast, where I was working from home a lot through the pandemic, and I really struggled to get that separation between what's home, what's work. Well, I'm home already, so I may as well just work an extra hour or two since I'm sat at this desk anyway. And that was a really, really dangerous habit for me to get into, because I had not planned I'm going to get this work done, and then maybe 6 months later I'll apply for the manager's job and then work through that and then all this kind of stuff. I was just constantly keeping up with my own pace and not actually going that one step further and working out how to progress anything. And it was kind of very, very tiring at the time, and why I left that job partly. So,
I mean, I've just thought of a good analogy, and it's so me and my partner Tash, we will always
your fiance. Are we allowed to say that on the podcast?
Fiance.
Are we allowed to say that if we're getting personal?
That word just makes me laugh though, fiance. Yeah, I've realised that you can't say fiance in a normal way. You say it with a bit of flair, don't you?
Yeah. It's got to have the little French twang to it at the end.
Fiance. My eyebrows are doing all weird things right now. But yeah, we always plan our weekly shop. So we do. Stay with me here. There is a reason why I'm saying this. I've not gone off on one here. But yeah, we plan our weekly shop. We plan our foods so we know what we're going to eat. We've got a plan, we've got a structure, and that helps us not feel overwhelmed. And that also makes sure that there's no food wastage, and it also makes sure that we're eating nutritious food and we're not always getting a takeaway or eating something quick and easy. And the same principles can be said about your life and your career, right? If you've got a plan and structure, and there can be flexibility as well, don't worry, you should give yourself some flexibility in that plan. But making sure that you have a plan for your career, you can make sure that you are always working towards a goal, that you are giving yourself what you need to make sure that you're successful and fulfilled, that you're not wasting time and energy doing stuff that you shouldn't. So there's lots of benefits, isn't there? And again, something that we'll talk about more on the night. But Tazmin, anything else that's coming into your mind before we wrap up?
I really like the last point that you made, because you could be overwhelmed if you don't career plan. Because if you then spend lots and lots of time and energy doing things that are wrong for where you want to get to, where you're not aligned with what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, then that's going to cause exhaustion, overwhelm. And one of the reasons people do burn out is because they're doing work that's not aligned to them. So that's a really valuable point to make, that although career planning is avoided because it can seem overwhelming, actually not career planning can be just as overwhelming.
It's a catch 22. Is that the right way of using?
Yeah.
Vicious cycle.
I totally agree with you, Sarah. Like the meal planning thing for my wife Emma and I has been a big part of us making sure we have a bit of structure to it. Like you said, you then have one less thing to it. You kind of filter it all down into a single. We do it on like a Saturday afternoon, so it arrives on Sunday, ready to start the week on Monday, kind of thing. And we've gotten into the ritual now of doing that and making sure it's ready. And that also involves like planning lunches for work and stuff. So I'm not waking up, having to rush for the bus, trying to work out what lunch am I going to have. Is there anything in the freezer I can take with me? Oh, we don't have a freezer at work, but I could use this thing, and that's not going to defrost in time. And the panic and all, and like I said, the overwhelm we were just talking about. Now we have it all planned out. It's like, oh, I know, we can bulk cook this particular meal, and then that will serve me for the next 3 lunches. Or just knowing what's happening in the evening means I don't have okay, I'm on my way home from work. Do I need to grab something now? Do I need to call my wife as she's coming home from work? Do we need to coordinate anything? There's all this extra stuff to worry about. Exactly the same thing with your career. If you have a rough idea of where you're going, you don't have to stick to it 100 times. You mentioned having a sneaky little takeaway there, Sarah. Like, we are totally guilty of that. Of like, okay, it does say we need to cook this thing tonight, but we don't have the energy. Let's be cheeky. Let's, do a freezer meal or whatever it is. But we will come back around to that later on. And I think that's been a big part for me in my career of like, even if I don't achieve this goal now, I can come back around to it later. I can, even if I don't have the energy to fill out this job application form or have this conversation about a pay rise or whatever it is that's the next step in your career, it's always going to be there in the future. There's going to be other opportunities. There's going to be other things you can do. And if you don't have the energy now, don't feel like you have to absolutely force yourself. Like you said, there's still the room for flexibility. But I think having a rough idea and a guide takes the pressure off of like, oh God, now I need to suddenly make this huge decision. And rather than I need to make this huge career, life-changing decision on basically no notice, you've actually given yourself that notice to kind of plan a little bit further in advance. Say, well, yeah, we've been talking about this for weeks, for months. I'm aware of what's going on. There's not so much of the sudden like surprise of something big happening.
Do you know what? This conversation is just, we've already covered
it's a little taster.
It's a little taster, yeah.
Speaking of meal planning. This is the lunch for the dinner that is the life podcast. There you go.
This is the amuse-bouche.
Oh, there we go.
Amuse-bouche. Again, another word that you can't say without your eyebrows. Amuse-bouche. So, I think, yeah, I think that's it for now, because you're just going to have to join us on the night, aren't you? Because we're going to be having more of these conversations. We're going to be sharing more tips, more strategies. You yourself can get involved as well. There's also the talking before and after the event, eating pizza, having some drinks and snacks. We've got it all going on. So
what more could you want?
What more? I'm very much looking forward to it. Very, very much looking forward to it. Part of me wants October and the event to hurry up and be here tomorrow. But also, I know how much we've got to plan.
Speaking of planning, we've got planning to do.
So yeah, right. Jack, just a reminder of the key information. So dates, logistics, that lovely stuff.
It's on Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 2024. That's the day before the main Brighton SEO conference kicks off on Thursday, the 3rd. It's starting at 7 p.m. at Projects The Lanes in Brighton. As Sarah mentioned earlier, it is very, very close to the Brighton Centre where Brighton SEO is happening. Even if you're not attending Brighton SEO, you can still come along. If you're going to be in Brighton at that time, you don't have to have a Brighton SEO ticket. It's not a requirement or anything like that. You can just come along. We had quite a few people come along to previous events who just happened to be in the local tech community or the local marketing community. whatever it was, you're welcome to come along if you're in Brighton on Wednesday, the 2nd of October. Like I said, Projects the Lanes, all the links and stuff will be in the video description and show notes and all that kind of stuff. Wherever you're watching or listening, you can click, and it's all in Eventbrite. So if you want to search career planning without overwhelming yourself, you can find the live podcast link in Eventbrite as well.
Wonderful. So yeah, no excuse. And reminder that we did sell out not once but twice, so it is a popular event, so please do get your tickets. Tazmin,
So what if somebody is not in Brighton? What can they do to join?
oh, good question. Are you answering that question, or do you want me to answer that question?
I will hand it to you two.
Well, yes, you don't have to physically be there. So there's lots of ways that you can watch during the event. So the event itself will be live streamed to Silicon Brighton's YouTube channel. So we'll make sure that there's a link in the show notes to that, and then you can watch along with that. Jack, you'll be sharing it on Search With Candour feeds, right?
Yep, so it'll be in both audio and video format as we are now with Search With Candour. So that'll be on our YouTube channel probably a couple of weeks after it goes live. Give me a chance to download the video and upload it and all that kind of stuff. And also it'll be in audio forms on Search With Candour and the SEO Mindset podcast feed.
Yes, it will be available there an hour after the. No, I joke. I won't get around to it that quickly.
Imagine you in your hotel room just frantically downloading the MP3.
Gotta do this before Jack. This is a little competition. Yeah. No, it'll be available a few days, weeks afterwards. So there's lots of ways that you can still get involved. But if you can actually join on the night in person, then obviously that's where you can have a more active role and eat the pizza, because you can't eat the pizza and enjoy the snacks and ask questions if you don't join live. So yes, so make sure literally just wherever this is posted, check the show notes, check the description, check the links anywhere, and you'll be able, everyone point all around your faces. And we very much look forward to you guys joining us, right?
Definitely looking forward to it. Can't wait to see
so.
people who I didn't see last time hang out at Brighton SEO and have lots of questions and share lots of stories.
One quick question for you both that I want you to answer. Jack, one main reason people should go?
Free pizza. What more could you want?
Tazmin?
Free pizza, yes, but also it's a beautiful event. You will not regret it, I guarantee you that.
And you get to hang out with me, Jack, and Tazmin in person. So there you go. 3 reasons why it's an event not to miss.
Exactly. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of you in October. Fingers crossed. It'll be nice to say hello.
Indeed. Until then, take care of yourselves.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Search With Candour. Thank you to Sarah and Tazmin for joining me. If you want to go and subscribe to the SEO Mindset podcast, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a specific niche within the SEO podcasting industry. I really, really like what those guys do when they focus on the career side of things, the mental health side of things, and talking about a lot of the topics that don't get covered in a lot of other SEO podcasts. So I'll put a link for the SEO Mindset guys in the show notes or the video description if you want to go and follow them, subscribe to the podcast, all that good stuff. I'm a regular guest on there as well, so there is a nice bit of crossover between us, and I've known these guys for a long time. They're really good friends, and if you've listened to the rest of the episode, you know they're a lot of fun as well. In the meantime, like I said, go and check out the live podcast. Tickets are available now on Eventbrite. Go and click the link in the show notes or the video description down below. As always, everything's free food, free snacks, free tickets, all that good stuff you can come to expect from the 4th time around that we're doing this. Coming up over the next few weeks, I'll have some fantastic guests and topics, and we will actually be releasing the live podcast later on, probably a week or 2 after it comes out, when it actually happens in person on the 2nd of October. So expect that probably sort of middle of October sort of time, probably. Before then, like I said, I'll have some more fantastic guests and topics. Of course, Mark will be back here in the studio to discuss all the latest SEO news as well. All the usual stuff you've come to expect from Search with Candour throughout Season 2, throughout Season 3, hopefully what you've enjoyed throughout 2024 as well. If you'd like to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, we'd hugely appreciate it. Please leave a comment down below. If you have any questions or anything like that, please do drop them in the comments down below. If you're listening to us or watching on Spotify, please do give us a 5-star review if you like the podcast, if you're really, really enjoying what we're doing here. And in the meantime, I will see you next week. Have a lovely week.